Welcome to Chasing Time. I'm Tim Lewis, and today I'm chasing time with Lisa Mathews, owner and guide for Mysterious Harbor Tours in Boothbay Harbor. And today we're filming at the Spruce Point Inn in Boothbay Harbor. Welcome to my show, Lisa.
Thank you, Tim. It's great to be here.
Nice to have you. Now, can you give us some background on your working career and your passion for researching and writing books about the paranormal?
Yes, I have spent most of my adult life working in tech corporate marketing. Just recently was able to switch careers completely and realize my passion for the paranormal, researching and writing about the paranormal, and starting the tour company here. And I guess my fascination with ghosts really began when I was a teenager. My dad died when I was 15, and I saw him one morning standing in our living room before I was going back to school. And that experience had a very profound effect on me. And I was left with a lot of questions about what happens when we die. Was he trying to communicate with me in some way that I couldn't understand at the time? And that interest led to eventually publishing a book called Haunted Texas Vacations, the Complete Ghostly Guide, that I wrote over the course of a year, traveling all over the state of Texas on weekends and staying in haunted places, interviewing people about their paranormal experiences, and doing a lot of historical research into the different locations that I visited.
Wow, so that was a springboard for this.
Yes, most definitely.
Are there any that intrigue you more than others? Any encounters?
Well, I will tell you the scariest one for me that happened while I was doing research for the book happened in a very haunted hotel in a small town in East Texas called Jefferson. This was the Jefferson Hotel, and I had a horrifying experience of feeling someone climb into the bed with me and spoon me, but this wasn't a person.
Wow.
This apparently was a male ghost that had been seen, and many women staying in this particular room had this experience, but at the time I hadn't heard any of those stories. So that was definitely a very crazy experience, and one that I do not hope to have again.
I should say. Now, can you describe your work with Capital City Ghost Research Society in Austin, Texas, and the American Ghost Research Society?
Yes, so I started the Capital City Ghost Research Society back when I was doing the research for my book. My group would meet a couple of times a month, and we would do investigations of haunted places. It was a great way for me to have a team of people go with me, and we would try to collect evidence of ghosts. I use that term lightly because I do try to think about the paranormal in a scientific way, but I also feel like the different devices that ghost hunters use to collect information and evidence doesn't always actually work.
I see.
I personally have kind of transformed into an investigator that is more interested in actually spending time in the places to see if I can actually have a paranormal experience of my own, and then interviewing the people who have had experiences. That's probably my favorite aspect of it, is collecting stories from other people.
Well, that's a good way, I would think.
Yes.
That's more true.
Yes.
True to life.
It feels, for me, I don't know that we're ever going to be able to prove in the existence of ghosts. I myself consider myself to be an open-minded skeptic. And I think a lot of times you have to have your own experience to really become a believer in ghosts.
I think you do. And I have an experience that I had. It was shortly after my mother had passed on. And I went up to the cemetery. My mother and father were buried together, in the same lot. And I had just finished saying a prayer about asking God to keep my mother and father together. And these 2 Canadian geese came flying about 3 feet above my head.
Wow.
And I looked up, and what drew my attention was the wings were flapping together. And within seconds, they flew over the trees. I never saw them again. I had some discussions with some clergy and some doctor friend I have here in town, and they concluded the same thing, that I had received a message that my parents were together.
Oh.
So I think sometimes if you keep your mind open and your heart open and get that good vibration going, can you experience things more?
I do think it definitely helps to keep an open mind and an open heart. I also think it helps to think good thoughts, positive, light thoughts, rather than potentially opening yourself up to a darker energy that could be in some of these places that have paranormal activity. I also think just, after so many years of traveling and staying in haunted places, that it's a numbers game. You're putting yourself in the right place and hoping that it's the right time to actually have a paranormal experience.
Now, Lisa, could you give us some information on your mysterious harbor tours that you and your husband, Roger, operate?
Yes. So we started Mysterious Harbor Tours really this year. I did a few tours last year as a bit of a dry run to see how things would go. But this year was really our first full summer season of tours. We do both electric bike and walking tours. We have history and foodie tours. And then, of course, because of my love of the paranormal, I have actually 3 different ghost tours, 2 walking ghost tours where we end at a couple of our favorite watering holes in town, Neat Whiskey Bar and the Footbridge Brewery. And then an electric bike tour where the highlight, we tour the east side of the harbor, is to come out here to the Spruce Point Inn.
Now, you and your husband operate Pedigo electric bikes.
Yes.
And are there any other shops like that in Maine? I'm curious.
Pedigo electric bikes, I believe we do have the largest inventory of electric bikes in Maine. There are a couple of other stores that sell electric bikes, but we, I believe, do have the largest inventory in Maine of electric bikes.
I'm curious. There's a lot of spirit activity along the Maine coast, especially in lighthouses and old homes. Why do you think that's true? What could be some of the signs that would produce that?
I do think that places that have a very long history, a long history of people living here, obviously you've got to have people in order to have ghosts. And most places that have a long history, at least part of that time, there is some violence and violent deaths that occurred. Here in this area, obviously we went through almost a century of warring factions that were happening here between the indigenous people and the Europeans that were trying to settle here in the 1600s. So there was a lot of violent death here. I also think it could have something to do with being right on the coast, so close to the ocean, and basically the whole coast of Maine, we're on granite here. There are paranormal theories that talk about that some materials like salt water and granite can actually act as almost giant batteries for that expressed energy, emotional energy that happens, especially during those eons of time, people living here, and that those materials can somehow store and then replay some of those past events, that feelings of emotion. That's anybody's guess why those replays happen. There are theories that talk about maybe it has something to do with the time of year. There's more static electricity during the winter time.
That's true.
And there tend to be more reports of paranormal activity during winter months. It could have something to do with the moon that obviously affects our tides here. Maybe that has some impact on that energetic. I do think that if ghosts exist, they are a form of energy, something in all of us that is what animates us, that does not die when our physical bodies die.
Absolutely. You know, I sometimes wonder, when they come back into this world, is there a portal or a time zone that they get into, do you think? Is that a theory? Or?
It is a theory, and I do think that there are ghosts that seem to be trapped in a particular location. And for whatever reason, most of the time it is due to a sudden tragic death, or sometimes confusion when they die. I was reading an interesting case from a very famous California ghost hunter, of a ghost that he was able to communicate with. And she expressed that when she was alive, she was not a religious or spiritual person. And when she died, she was uncertain if she believed in a heaven or a hell. And because she was nervous about leaving her house, she decided it was easier and better for her just to stay in the house that she'd grown up in. So sometimes I think it may be a choice that they have. Sometimes it's not. I also believe that people who have passed away and have definitely gone to another place, heaven, another state of consciousness, whatever that place is, and they can choose to come back on visitations. I've had a lot of experiences with my father in the now, 40 years that he's been gone, coming back to me in dreams that I do consider to be visitation dreams. So I think it can be a myriad of ways that they can come and go. And some of them don't appear to be able to leave for whatever reason.
When you were in Texas, is Texas noted for lots of spirit activity in the state?
I think that, most places, if you really start to dig into the history and talk to people who live and work in buildings, pretty much every place that I've ever visited and really looked into has a lot of ghost activity going on. I think it's more common than a lot of people realize. So I think Texas, same here. There is a long history there of a lot of violent death, a lot of fighting going on there for many years. And, any of the parts of our country that have these long histories, I just think that they have a lot of ghosts as well.
Yeah, it's kind of a breeding zone for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Lisa, we're at the Spruce Point Inn today, and there has been a lot of encounters with ghosts on this property. Videos, photos to prove it. Can you highlight some of the sightings in the area they mostly come from?
Well, I have to tell you, in 30 years of doing paranormal research, I put the Spruce Point Inn at the top of my list as my favorite place. I think that its long, very rich history is fascinating and super interesting. In fact, this is the inn's 133rd year as a lodging place. And it started out in 1892 as a hunting lodge. So people who lived in the big cities along the East Coast would come up here to beautiful Maine and hunt and fish. And the lodge even offered taxidermy services to their guests. Then in 1903, a local woman named Mrs. Holland bought the property and opened it up as a boarding house with a tea room inside. All of the subsequent owners of the property have added to it and put their personal touches on it and turned it into the absolutely gorgeous resort that we have here today. There are a lot of ghostly tales associated with the Spruce Point Inn. We actually are lucky enough today to have a long-term employee, Ben Bickford, here with us. This is his 18th year of working here year-round at the inn. So I'm hoping that we could have Ben come out and tell us some of... Oh!
Hello.
Hi, Ben!
How are you?
Good.
Ben, welcome to my show.
Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I understand you've got a lot of knowledge about the spirits.
I have a few run-ins with them here at the inn over the years of being here, yes.
Can you highlight some of those for us?
Certainly. When I first started working in the kitchen here many years ago, I was working late one night and was waxing the floor, so I was taking a break out in the Salty Stag, and as I was sitting out there, I realized there was this figure standing in the French doors of our private dining room, looking out into the bar area, and it kind of caught me off guard a little bit, and I realized it was Mrs. Holland, just kind of standing there, just kind of watching.
How long was that image there?
She was there for less than a minute. Like, as soon as I realized that she was there and started moving towards her, she just kind of disappeared. So, but she was just there. I'd seen her a couple of times over that summer.
No words spoken.
No words spoken. She just stood there solemnly, like she does, like any of the pictures you see of her around the inn. It's pretty much the same look of just that sourness of, I'm here and I'm watching over you guys to make sure you're doing my inn the way I want my inn being run. So that was kind of the look on her face of like, yeah, you're doing a good job. Thank you.
Wow.
So that was one of my experiences here at the inn. Same doing late night work here in the inn again. They had left the music playing in the bar, and again had gone out to the Salty Stag area just to take a break while the floor was drying, and they had left the music on. Again, caught something out of the corner of my eye, thinking it was Mrs. Holland. It wasn't. It was these two people dancing in front of the fireplace.
Really?
And as soon as they realized I saw them, they disappeared. But anytime we left the music on, it was reported that these two would show up and start dancing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are there any names for these people?
These people, I did not recognize them as any previous photos, and nobody else had any other stories of them.
Just love it here.
Yeah. So it was same clothing time period as Mrs. Holland. So I figured it's something of that generation that was here.
And how long was that image there?
They were there for maybe a few seconds, not very long. Once they realized that I was in the room and I was there, they disappeared very quickly. So,
have you ever been frightened?
I have not been frightened. No. I've always been like, okay, you guys are here, you're doing your business. As long as you let me do my business, I'm good with that. Any of them that I've interacted with have always been either playful or just there. So we have one who likes to be playful and makes our phone ring.
Really?
Yeah. So you may have noticed in the front lobby when you came in, we have an old payphone.
Yes.
Outside, and then we also have another old-time rotary phone here in the main lobby, which neither of them work. And they used to make the payphone ring, and they've stopped doing that. They make the old phone here in the lobby ring. And last summer we had a guest out there with their kids, and the kids were playing around it, and the phone rang. And the wife looked at the husband and says, "Did you just make that phone ring on your," figured he had an app on his phone that made the old time phone ring. And he goes, "No." And the kids are answering it, and it keeps ringing, and they set it down. And they kind of look at me, and I'm like, "It does that sometimes."
Wow.
But the thing is, they didn't look to see if it's actually plugged in, and it's not. It's just there.
Has that happened frequently?
It happens every couple seasons. It happened last season. I have not seen it happen yet this year, or I was not aware of it happening, and I didn't have my desk agent's report of the strange phone.
Lisa, how would you interpret that?
Well, a former GM also told me stories about that phone ringing, and she said that it was just Julius. And I said, "Oh, okay, who's Julius?" And she said that Julius was a very beloved employee that worked here for 20 years. He was a maitre d' here. And unfortunately, he went on vacation and was killed while he was on vacation in 2004. And so the former general manager told me that the phone started ringing after Julius had died. And so she said that she personally had heard it maybe a dozen times.
Really?
Over the years. She said that everybody, when they would hear the phone, they would say, "Oh, it's just Julius calling to see how everybody is, just to say hi."
I remember him in the dining room over here. He was a very nice man.
It was about 2 years after his passing is when I started working here.
Wow.
So I did not get to meet him, unfortunately, but I did get to see his portrait that we did have of him.
Yes.
So
It's really nice.
it is.
Yes.
He was a real gentleman, a
Yes.
very nice person.
Yeah, like I say, everything I heard from him was that he was very professional and cared a lot about the guests and making sure their experiences were well received.
Yes.
What are some of the other encounters you've had here?
So many other encounters, again, going away from the old style phones. Last year, our digital phones that we have started ringing from an employee room that no longer exists on property. So I even called our phone tech company. I said, "Can you explain this?" And they're like, "We have no explanation for it." So it was just because I gave them the extension number, and they're like, "That extension doesn't exist." I'm like, here's the extension. This is what keeps coming up on our phones. And they're like, "That doesn't exist." I said, "It says employee room." I forget what the number was, but yeah. So it happened for a couple of days, and then it just stopped.
Wow. There's another former general manager told me he had just spent a couple of months out here alone. And I came out to talk to him about bringing tours out here. And so he was very reticent initially to admit to any being spooked out here, because I said, how's it been staying out here by yourself? And he said, "Well, I've heard a few things upstairs, but it gets really windy out here during this time of year." And he said, "But I don't know about that phone ringing. That one I still can't figure out." And I said, "What phone ringing?" And he said, "Well, I was working late at night in my office, which kind of backs up onto that payphone. And he said he heard that old-timey brrrring sound and thought, okay, where is that coming from? Because that's not our new phone system. His phone was not ringing in his office. So he got up and walked out into the lobby and realized that it was coming from the payphone, which has been disconnected for years and years, like, I don't know, over 20 years. And so he told me that he actually went out there and picked it up, and he heard static on the phone, and it kind of startled him.
Yeah.
And so he hung the phone up very quickly and then realized, oh, I should have I should have said hello. He picked it back up and it was just silent, like it normally is.
Wow.
Yes.
And Ben, How about guests? Have guests reported any unusual events?
Believe it or not, we haven't had any guests that reported unusual events.
I haven't heard of any coming from guests.
Which I think allows that our spirits here are courteous to our guests and don't need to shake things up anything for them. But mostly, from what I can tell, they just like to be playful and just observe what's happening.
You had mentioned on a conversation I had with you about entering a room that was very cold.
Yes, yeah. I was in a room which had the heat on. It was over one of the winters I was working here, and it noticeably the temperature dropped, and I could see my breath very fast, very quickly. Wow. And clearly, I went over to the heat source and made sure it was still on.
Yeah.
It was still set at 80, and you could still see your breath. But it lasted probably about 2 or 3 minutes, and then the temperature started to warm up again.
Lisa, what would cause that, do you think?
Well, that's a common phenomenon that you hear about in haunted places. Maybe that has something to do with a spirit trying to manifest, and it almost, takes the energy out of the room in certain places. I have heard of people having that experience before. I think a lot of the accounts that I've heard of here at Spruce Point Inn have to do with former owners, which I think is really sweet and is a testament to how much they loved the property and working here. There's another great story that the maintenance manager who was here for 20 years told me that happened in the same general location where you had your encounters. He was polishing the floors late at night, so that's also a common theme here. And he noticed some movement out of the corner of his eye, and when he looked up, there was an antique oil lantern floating through the middle of the room. And it just floated right by him. He said, Lisa, you've never seen somebody unplug and get out of a room faster than I did. And he was upset because he had to change his work schedule. Because he said, I knew I could never go and clean the floors at night again because it just really freaked him out. But he told me that he thought that was probably Mr. Harold, another former owner who was known to carry a lantern around the property at night. It was kind of his nightly ritual just to check on things and make sure that everybody was tucked in for the night and everything was as it should be. I think that's a really neat story.
Explain that.
Yeah, exactly.
You hear all these theories and people are so eager to dismiss them rather than to really investigate them.
I think, I mean, everybody loves a good ghost story, but I think a lot of times if you're actually the one experiencing something like that, people process that in different ways. The way I have obviously still been trying to process this my entire life is to dive in and talk to other people about their experiences of it. But I think it's a natural reaction to try to not talk about it or think about it because it really does bring up a lot of questions about our world and that, wow, it may be a lot weirder than we think that it is.
A lot of questions certainly are drawn up.
And people who are rational, logical, maybe lean more towards the scientific, can really struggle. People who are skeptics. I've interviewed a lot of people who were very skeptical about the existence of ghosts and had an experience with a ghost that really kind of turned their world upside down.
That's true.
And so I'm always very appreciative and I consider it to be an honor when someone will sit down with me and share their ghost encounters because that's not an easy thing to do.
No, it isn't. No. Ben, you work here during the winter months, you said.
Yep.
Do you ever feel afraid in the winter working alone?
There's
For
been
hearing
times I've been
sounds
sitting up in my office and I can hear somebody coming up over the stairs and know that I'm the only person here on property or the only person in the room. So first time it happened, I was a little spooked out about it. At this point in time, after these number of years being here, I just go, okay, it's another one.
So these things are frequent here in the
They're
winter.
frequent. In the wintertime, when there's less people in the inn, they move around a lot more. I'll hear, up in where the taxidermy used to be, I'll hear footsteps up there.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll hear that door opener close up there, which is kind of interesting, especially if I'm the only one here.
Yes.
Or I know I've closed that door and I go find it open and I'm like, okay, well, I didn't leave that open.
So you just accept the...
I just accept it, yeah.
It's interesting because that area where Ben's office is now and the taxidermy room was, so that's another hot spot, I guess you could say, of activity here. And the first person that I talked to about the hauntings here was a former owner, and she came out here with me and we did a little walk around so she could tell me some stories. And she said that the first story that she remembers, she had a supply room up in that same area. It may have even been in the taxidermy room.
That used to be a supply room, yeah.
Okay, so it was the taxidermy room. She had supplies in there, and female employees who were servers or worked on the housekeeping staff were having to go in there a lot during the day, and they started coming to the owner and complaining about different things happening in that room. They felt, for some reason, like they were trespassing. They started reporting feeling someone touching them, and it escalated to the point where the door would slam in their faces as they were, making their way inside to grab some paper towels or whatever it was they were looking for. And so the owner decided to bring a psychic in without telling this person anything about what was going on, and see if she could find out who this was.
Right.
And the psychic reported back that it was a man who had been a groom for the horses when this was a hunting lodge. And he said that area of the lodge were the dormitories, and it was no women allowed. It was a men's dormitory. And so he had a real problem with the ladies coming in all the time.
Make sense.
Exactly. And so the owner told me, I wasn't really sure what to do with that information. She said, I definitely decided to move those supplies out of there and put them in a different place.
I think that would be wise.
Exactly. And then she said, I just did a little repainting and, made it into an office, but it never really has stopped the activity from going on in there. It's just the female employees are not as bothered by it anymore. So,
Ben, have you ever had any contact, any feeling of someone touching you?
I haven't had that here, but I've felt like when you're in a room, there's somebody else in the room with you. Just that feeling of people being in the room with you. I've been here before by myself and felt that I am not alone.
Lisa, have you had any feeling or touch from a spirit?
That one that kind of spooned me.
You had. That was in Texas, right?
I did not feel touch from a hand, but it was almost like feeling the energy of a person that's close by you, or the heat from that. I don't know. It was very strange. I was going to say, I've heard reports from people who've been working in the kitchen who have felt like someone had come up behind them and turned around and there was no one there. And a couple of those people reported being touched or hearing their names whispered in their ears. And there is a video that was shot on security camera in the kitchen by that maintenance manager who had the lantern float by him. The video shows a sort of a shadowy figure moving through the kitchen. So there definitely has been some strange activity in that area.
And those cameras only come on when there's movement.
And there's
So they're not constantly recording. They only come on when they detect movement.
And you can definitely see something moving through that
Especially when
kitchen.
the light lights up when it goes out the door.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Because where that light is sitting in that kitchen, there's no outlet for it to be plugged into.
I see.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Ben, is there anything you'd like to add? Did I forget anything? Is there anything you'd like to add?
I think that the history of this building and the number of people that we've had through it in our 133 years, I mean, how can you not expect to find something here?
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
I'm grateful that they're all fun-loving spirits,
Yeah.
you know, and nothing mischievous or nothing bad has happened here on property. So it's all just, they seem to like the area, and just like our guests that like the hotels, they come back year after year.
That's true. I like it. Repeat guests.
Repeat guests.
I like
They're
it.
not paying guests, but
Well,
another repeat guest.
I like it. I like that. Yeah. Lisa, is there anything you would like to add? Did I forget anything?
I don't think so. This has been a lot of fun, very enjoyable.
Yep.
And I'm very happy that we got to do the interview here at Spruce Point Inn because it's my favorite place.
It's a beautiful inn. It really is. Ben, thank you for coming on and
Well, thank
talking
you
with
for
us.
having me.
I really enjoyed it. And Lisa, thank you for chatting with us here and giving your knowledge and expertise on the paranormal and continued success with your business too.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So I always close on a positive high. And I think this one fits this setting perfect. The spirit world speaks to us through the heart. The more we open our hearts and raise our vibrations, the easier the connection. I'm Tim Lewis, a Booth Bay Harbor native, and your host of Chasing Time, signing off from the Spruce Point Inn, a true Maine coastal gem. Till we meet again, my friends, stay forever young.